Welcome to Lesson 5 in Unit 13, Avoiding Extinction. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how are living things connected? In this lesson, students are introduced to the anchoring problem of the modern prairie chicken facing extinction. They investigate the living and non-living parts of an ecosystem. Students figure out that populations live in a variety of habitats and are connected to each other within an ecosystem. When organisms in a habitat change, it can affect the other organisms living there. Students make connections to the storyline by explaining how the prairie chicken is connected to the rest of the organisms in the prairie and why the decline in the prairie chicken population could be a problem for the rest of the ecosystem. There are several opportunities for ELA and math cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 13 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. You'll begin Section 2 by introducing the anchoring problem. For the Engage portion, you'll show a video to students that gives them information about the prairie chicken. You'll then ask students what they observe about the video and the graph within it that shows the declining prairie chicken population. You can post and discuss the population and endangered vocabulary cards. You'll also ask what students' observations make them wonder and add these questions to the class driving question board. For the Explore portion, you'll put students into groups with the forest and prairie posters and a set of cards for the ecosystem investigation. You'll talk over the vocabulary word ecosystem. Students will make observations between the posters, the cards, and the living and non-living things in the ecosystem. You'll have students use the Parts of the Ecosystem student journal page to record their observations. For the Explain portion, you'll bring the class together and lead a discussion about students' observations from the ecosystem posters and cards. You'll use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how are living things connected? The goal of this class discussion is to identify how organisms interact with each other and the non-living things in their ecosystem, and to describe how living things get what they need from their ecosystem. You'll use the discussion to create the Lesson 5 summary chart. By the end of the discussion, students should understand that the prairie chicken is a keystone species, since it is connected with so many other prairie species. It needs food, water, and shelter to survive, which it gets from its habitat in the prairie ecosystem. During the discussion, you'll read At Home with the Gopher Tortoise. You'll use the Read Aloud guide to identify the role of keystone species in ecosystems. During the Read Aloud, you'll post the Keystone Species vocabulary card. You'll also have students use evidence from the discussion to complete the Patterns and Needs of Living Things student journal page. For the Elaborate portion, you'll have students participate in the Interactions on the Prairie activity. In this activity, students will identify the relationships between the prairie chicken and the other prairie organisms using the prairie cards. You'll also complete the summary chart discussion. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students complete the Changing Environment Quick Check student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient them back to the driving question board. You'll ask students, what did we learn about how living things are connected? And what additional questions do you have now? By the end of this lesson, students will have described how living things are interconnected in an ecosystem and predicted what would happen to organisms in an ecosystem when there is a change in organisms living there. In Lesson 6, students will investigate what caused the decline in the prairie chicken population. For the optional Extend, you can revisit the ecosystem card sets. You can ask students to work together to form a model of ecosystem organism interactions with the cards. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.